But we have an amazing speaker today, and I want to open our hearts and our minds to his message. Dr. Jon Mundy is an author, he's a lecturer and publisher of Miracles Magazine, and the executive director of the All Faiths Seminary in New York City. He's taught courses in philosophy and religion since 1967 at the New School University and the State University of New York, with a specialization in the history of mysticism. He's the author of 9 books, and a recent book that he wrote called Living A Course in Miracles is now in 8 languages, and for the past 3 years has been the second best-selling book about A Course in Miracles. John met Dr. Helen Schucman, who was the scribe, many of you know, of A Course in Miracles back in 1973. And it was Helen who introduced John to the Course and served as his counselor until she became ill in 1980. So to say John has been there since the beginning of this remarkable work that many of us have found to be incredibly insightful, actually made us very angry at times and turned us inside out and upside down, but rings so deeply true with the message of truth and love and forgiveness. So John has a great message today and a wonderful workshop this afternoon. So please welcome Dr. Jon Mundy. John.
Thank you. Good morning. It's really wonderful for us to be. You want to move this? Yeah, take it off. Okay. Thanks. In Santa Barbara, this is unusual. We live in the Hudson River Valley in New York, just about an hour north of New York City. And I was here at a conference 2 years ago, and I came here and did an evening talk on A Course in Miracles, and there were 25 or 30 people here. And I remember saying afterwards, this is a church I want to come back to on a Sunday morning. So here we are back on a Sunday morning. And my wife Dolores is with me for the first time. By that first time, I mean she retired from a school administration in June of last year, which usually at this time she's getting ready for opening a school. This year, somebody else is doing it. So she's here with me. And thank you, Woody. Appreciate music very much. And also for Pablo and Renee and John, you have a very beautiful voice, dear. You really, really do. Right? So, and also, thanks to Joanne for her help. Joan, rather. That's the second time in 2 days I've made that call somebody Joan, and it was Joan. So, we do have a workshop this afternoon. I'm working on this book called There's No Place Like Home, which is really about heaven, the concept of heaven in A Course in Miracles. But it's not just about heaven in A Course in Miracles. I'm taking all of the near-death experience reports that have come out in the past few years and putting those together with what the Course in Miracles says we can be. And let's face it, baby boomers, we're getting closer and closer to that day when we'd like to know a little bit more about what that day is going to be like, right? Our topic for this morning is I'm Nobody, Who Are You? And I'd like to begin with a couple of quotes from A Course in Miracles. There's a very interesting concept in A Course in Miracles which has to do with what it calls specialness. And what it really says is that being special, thinking of ourselves as being special, becomes a real block to the awareness of love's presence. I mean, how are you going to be able to hear God's voice speaking to you when you've got a lot of your own story, drama, soap opera stuff going on inside here? That becomes a block. It's like, it's perfectly, think of yourself as like the Course would say, it doesn't say this, but like a radio or a television or something. You're really a receiver. And the question is, which voice are you listening? There's 2 voices. There's WEGO, which we know that a lot about that one. That comes in loud and strong, a little staticky, a little bit of not nice. And then there's WGOD. And WGOD is very peaceful and calm and gentle and joyful, and there's a wholly other message. It's just which message are we going to listen to? What the Course calls an insane mind. That's this thing we call an ego, which as a matter of fact doesn't even exist at all. So that's really insane, that we would listen to something that doesn't even exist. Or what we know to really be the truth, which is what you're after here in unity, and trying to keep bringing that identity and that memory back to. So anyhow, the two quotes from the Course. One of them goes, "Specialness is a false impression we hold about ourselves and a lack of faith in anything except ourselves." Right? Which also means it's a very lonely sort of state to be in, to be only trusting in your own self, right? Not being able to trust in God. There's a little story I'd like to start with. There's a story of a minister of a large church who goes into a chapel one day and he kneels down and he begins to pray. He says, "Lord, I am nobody, I am so nobody." The associate minister is walking past, sees the senior minister in there on his knees, hears what he says, goes in, kneels down next to him, and he says, "Lord, I too am nobody, I'm so nobody." The custodian's walking by, he sees the two ministers in there, hears what they say, goes in, kneels down next to the associate, says, "Lord, I too am nobody, I'm so nobody." The associate minister opens his eyes, sees the custodian next to him, punches the senior minister in the side and says, "Look who thinks he's nobody." Right? That's an old one, actually. So what I'm going to do this morning is to suggest 4 different ways, there's a lot more than 4, different ways that we might think of ourselves as being special, and how these forms of specialness then become blocks to the awareness of love, of love's presence. Actually, there's a line in the Course in Miracles where it says, "There is nothing so deceptive as the perception of form," whether that's physical form or definition that we give to something like definition, even though we would give to ourselves. And I'd like to share one quote from Ram Dass before I get into this. He says, "In most of our human relationships, we spend much of our time reassuring one another that our costumes of identity are on straight." Huh? You laugh because it's true. Okay. we resonate with that, right? So 4 ways that we might think of ourselves as being special. The number 1 way is the most obvious way of all, because it's the kind of way that the man on the street would understand. You don't have to be a Course in Miracles student to understand this. And this is what we would call egotism, right? As a block to the awareness of love's presence. Some of you may be familiar with the work of Dr. David Hawkins, a great psychologist and Course student also, who says routinely people discover that the life of celebrity is odorsome and burdensome to them once the novelty of the thing wears off. So the first thing I'm going to suggest that you wouldn't want to be is famous. Famous people have very difficult lives. You got to keep that ball, and once it's up there, you got to, in the beginning, he says, in the beginning it's sort of a novelty, it's kind of fun, but then with the paparazzis and with the tabloids and all that stuff kind of out there all the time, do you want to have to live with this? I said at the first service that I was standing online at a grocery store waiting to pay for groceries, and the National Enquirer is there, and there shows a picture of different bottoms of celebrities that were taken on beaches around the world, right? And underneath there's a caption which reads, "Whose cellulite is this?" Right? Inquiring minds want to know. Right? It just shows the insanity that we can go to in thinking that the form somehow or another says something about who we are. So when you think about Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, Princess Diana, poor Princess Diana didn't stand a chance at happiness. Lovely lady, but just didn't stand a chance at real happiness, right? Michael Jackson, Robin Williams. I mean, you can keep running down the list of folks for whom fame and celebrity was was a real stumbling block and a real burden to being able to be happy. Marilyn Monroe, interestingly enough, 2 months before she died, did an interview with Life magazine. It was tape recorded, but it wasn't filmed. And then a few years ago, PBS did a special on Marilyn. And what it was, they showed pictures of her that had been taken by famous photographers. Mostly they were black and white pictures of her. But well-known photographers had taken her picture. So they're showing these pictures, and at the same time that they're showing them, they're playing in the background this recording that was made by Life magazine, right? And so what she says in that recording is that she doesn't know who Marilyn Monroe is. She says it's something Hollywood made up. And she's crying when she talks about it. And she says, and I went along with it. I let him do it, you know. She says, but I don't know who it is. She says, it's not me. She says, I'm not a sex goddess. A sex goddess is a thing, and I am not a thing. I am a person. I'm just Norma Jean. But Norma Jean got lost in a mythological image that the whole world supported this mythological, and we all went along. This was the sex goddess, right? And there's no Marilyn Monroe in heaven. You know, there won't be Jon Mundy in heaven. I'll explain that this afternoon. By that I mean, you know, it's not a matter of that kind of an identity that we can ascribe to a physical thing that constitutes what the nature of reality is. The nature of reality transcends this completely, right? It's not a matter of individuality, right? Ken Wapnick, you know, many you know Ken Wapnick. Ken Wapnick was the leading spokesman for A Course in Miracles, and Ken Wapnick says the ego's version of heaven is that you get to keep your individuality, right? Not realizing that there's something even greater than that. You know, that when we surrender, when we give ourselves over to the greater thing, nothing is lost. We think something's going to be lost. Nothing is lost. Everything actually is gained. It's because we're becoming one back. We're back with the Father again. Scary to the ego, beautiful to the spirit. Just totally different kind of experience. So one way that we could get trapped is in thinking that we're somebody. You know, you got a lot of money, you drive a fancy car, you have all kinds of degrees after your name, you're a VIP. And that's an illusion if there ever was an illusion, right? Okay. So a second way that you might think of ourselves as being special, the Course does talk about a good bit, is just the opposite of that. And this is not because you're a VIP, it's because you're not a VIP. It's not because you're hot, it's because you're not hot. You know, it's because, you know, woe is me, and look at all my difficulties, and look at all my problems, and look at all this stuff that I've got to go through, that I've had to put up with. And of course, these kids drove me crazy, and I got all these bills, and I went bankrupt, and I just got all this, I had to go through a divorce, and just all, you know, it's being a victim. I'm a victim of the world, I see. One of the things that the Course is really, really clear about, I've often said if you could get lesson 31 from the Course, you'd be going a long ways in understanding the whole Course. And lesson 31 is, I am not a victim of the world I see. The Course is about assuming responsibility for absolutely everything that comes our way. Because once you assume responsibility for everything that's coming your way, then you can't bitch and complain anymore. You can't. Then you've got to be responsible for it, and being responsible is a wonderful experience. I mean, then you get the kind of results that you really want to get. I think it's interesting that in the Course in Miracles, the word beware appears one time. The Course consists of 500,000 words, right? And of those 500,000 words, the word beware one time? The sentence that appears is in the sentence that says, beware of the temptation to perceive yourself as being unfairly treated. Because we like to be unfairly treated. That makes us special. Right? And you can point out how special you are because of the way you got treated. Right? So, some of you remember Hank Williams, the country western singer, the first Hank Williams, not Hank Williams Jr., but Hank Williams Sr. He was once being interviewed on a radio, and the DJ said, "Hank, you've had a number of number one hits. Why do you think that's so?" And he says, "Well, you know, everybody feels good about feeling bad." Now, see, you're laughing because it's true. You know, we kind of like to get in there and wallow around in our badness, and you know, and tell everybody about the badness and all the stuff that we're going through. Like that makes us special because of all of our difficulties and all the stuff that we got to go through. So Hank had written all these. I was in Dallas to give a talk at Unity of Dallas several years ago, and I picked up my rental car, and I was on the way to go to my host home for the evening. I turned the radio on in the car. I don't have any CDs with me, and it was on a country western station. And I thought, you know, I don't usually listen to country western, but I'm in Texas, so let me listen to country western for a while, right? And I noticed with one major exception, there was one very major exception, they were all somebody done me wrong kind of a song, right? And here are some actual lines from country western songs. "My wife ran off with my best friend, and I sure do miss him. I'm so miserable without you, it's almost like you were here. I liked you better before I got to know you so well. How can I miss you if you won't go away? And if you don't leave me alone, I'll go find somebody who will." So we like to be special. Now, a third way I'm going to suggest that we can think of ourselves as being superior, special, is because of the way we see things, because of our opinions, because we're an elevated level of being able to analyze the political and religious systems that are going on in the world. We all know about this, right? So, of Course in Miracles says that we destroy our motivation for learning by thinking that we already know. Course in Miracles is trying to help us to kind of clean house, to get down so we can really know. In order to really know, the first step, it says in the beginning of the Course, principle number 7 of the 50 Miracles principles, miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. First we have to clean house in order to be able to become receptive. How are you going to be receptive if you think you already know? How's God going to get through and speak to you if you've got it all figured out already, right? Obviously that's not going to work. I like the way that Françoise Renée de Jon, who was the founder of Romanticism in French literature, says, "You are not special just because you can see the world in an odious light." Right? You might think that makes us special. And I also like the way that German scientist George Christopher Lichtenberg says, "Nothing is more conducive to peace of mind than not having an opinion." Not having an opinion? By the way, do you know what the difference is between a crow and a raven? The difference is that crows have these 4 long feathers that come off the tip end of their wings, and those feathers are called pinions. And ravens have 5 of those feathers instead of 4, so it's really just a matter of opinion. Sorry about that. Yes, yeah. Right. So there is a saying in Buddhism. This is a really good saying. Do not seek enlightenment. Do not seek enlightenment. Simply cease to cherish opinions. Wouldn't that be nice to be free of opinions? Wouldn't that be peaceful kind of state of mind? Don't seek enlightenment, just cease looking for all these opinions. If you just drop the opinion making, then you have a much greater chance of being able to see as God sees, as the real seeing. But again, we put all these blocks in our own way. We cloud our own vision with our own. The Course in Miracles says projection makes perception. It's very, projection makes perception. It's so important. There's only 3-word sentence, but it's so, projection makes perception. The world you see is what you make it. Period. Nothing more than that. I'll finish that paragraph. But while it's not more than that, it's not less. Therefore, to you it's important. It is a witness to your state of mind. It's an outside picture of an inner condition. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. I like to quote that because you know that line, as a man thinketh, so does he perceive, is from Proverbs. And Jesus quotes it in the Gospels. And then it shows up a 3rd time in the Course in Miracles. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? In 3 different of our holiest scriptures, that phrase appears. Actually, it's as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he in Matthew, but it's still the same thing, right? But it becomes a block. So there's one more way that I'm going to suggest, and then I'm going to try to figure out a little solution to this problem, and then we'll close. But so a 4th way that you might think of yourself as being special, and you really have got to watch out for this path if you're a kind of person that goes to church on Sunday, okay? So, or reads inspirational literature, or the Bible, or the Course in Miracles, or if you do yoga, you follow a clean diet, you're not judgmental, so you're better than judgmental people. You're special because you're spiritual. This is a real danger to be special because you're spiritual. Right? There's a story that's told about 4 Zen students who go into a week of silent meditation together. And they sit down, and a couple of hours go by, and one of them says, I wonder if I'd remembered to turn off the stove. To which a second one says, you idiot, you have spoken. We had agreed not to speak. To which a third one says, and now what are you thinking about? You too have spoken. To which the 4th one says, I am the only one who's not spoken. It's kind of insidious, this ego thing, right? It just sort of keeps sneaking in the back door, even when we're trying to be spiritual. So the Course says it's never a matter of what's going on in the world of form. There's a line from the Course that says, seek not yourself in symbols. There can be no concept that can stand for what you are. No concept, no title, no name, nothing like that can stand for what you really are. Right? There's a story about 4 ladies who are having tea together in a retirement home somewhere here in Santa Barbara. And they're Catholic ladies. One of them takes a sip of her tea, and she says, my son is a priest. When he walks into the room, all the ladies say, good evening, Father. Second one takes a sip of tea and says, well, my son is a bishop. When he walks into the room, all the ladies say, good evening, your grace. Whew. Third one takes a sip of tea and says, my son is a cardinal. When he walks into the room, all the ladies say, good evening, your eminence. Whew. Fourth one takes a sip of tea and says, my son. My son is a 6'2" hard-bodied male stripper. He walks into the room and all the ladies say, oh my God. So those are just some of the ways that we can consider ourselves as being special. All right. So now let's try to find a solution to that. Who are we really? If we're none of these accoutrements, we're none of these forms. We take none of this stuff with us when we leave here and go home to heaven. Believe me, first of all, you don't take a body. But we also don't take all the accoutrements that go along with the body, the titles, and there are no doctors in heaven, there are no reverends in heaven, there are no captains or lieutenants in heaven, that's stuff we make up in this world, and that's actually subtracts rather than adds to the truth of who we really are, right? I like one of the mystics I enjoy studying. His name is Wee Woo Wee, and Wee Woo Wee. His real name was Terence Gray, but he became a Taoist. And after he became a Taoist, he wrote a lot of books back during the early part of the 20th century that were really, really, really good books. Anyhow, Wee Woo Wee has a saying that goes, "Why are you unhappy?" Because 99.9% of everything you think and everything you say and everything you do is about yourself. And there isn't one. 99.9% of everything you do and everything you think and everything you say is about yourself. And there isn't one. It doesn't even exist. Not that. That doesn't exist because that's just the cloak, the mask, the outside, the form of the thing. And the form of the thing is not who we are, right? It's who we are really in truth. I want to give you another quote. It's one of my very, very favorite quotes. This comes from a mystic it was a German mystic. His name was Angelus Silesius, who was actually a Catholic priest, poet, physician, mystic. All those things wrapped up in one, right? This quote is so good that I think it ought to be on the wall in a church somewhere. I'm going to say that till I see it someday on a wall in a church. It's really this good. It goes like this. It says, "God, whose love is everywhere, can't come to visit unless you're not there." I'll do it again. God, whose love is everywhere, can't come to visit unless you're not there. We are so there. We are so into our heads, we are so into thinking, we're so into analyzing, we're so into interpreting, we're so into going all over all of our problems. You're driving down the road and thinking about that situation at work and then what you're going to say to him when you get in front of him. I mean, that's a kind of insanity. It really is a kind of insanity. There's a line in the Course, I love it, this only appears once in the Course, and I stumbled on it only about a year or so ago after 40 years of studying this thing, is I love it when you come across a line that you've read it many times before, and all of a sudden it just jumps off the page at you, right? This one goes like this. It says, "This is something you say to yourself." This is in lesson 52, the last line. "Would I not rather join in the thinking of the universe?" Think about that. There's a kind of thinking, which is the thinking of the universe. This is what Emerson was talking about. This is what Pierre Teilhard Chardin was talking about. This is what so many of the mystics are talking about. There's a kind of mind that is the mind of God, and you already participate in this mind, but not if you don't know it. I mean, not if you don't know that you already participate in this kind of mind. So let me finish the sentence. "Would I not rather join in the thinking of the universe than to continue to obscure," that's an interesting word, obscure, "all that's really mine with my pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts?" And we all have pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts, right? But those pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts are blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So let me close. I'm going to close with a little meditation. And so if you want to just sort of relax and maybe close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths, and just be very, very present. I am one self, united with my Creator. This idea actually describes you as God created you. You are one within yourself and one with Him. Yours is the unity of all creation. You are one self united with your Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, limitless in power and peace. This is the truth. Nothing else is true. Offer to your mind with all the certainty that you can give, I am one self united with my Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, limitless in power and peace. Tell yourself again slowly and thoughtfully, I am one self united with my Creator, Allow the meaning of these words to sink into your mind, replacing false ideas. I am one self united with my Creator. Attempt to feel the meaning that these words convey. You are one self, united and secure in light and joy and peace. You are God's child, one self, one Creator, and one goal, to bring awareness of all this oneness to one mind. The true creation may extend the allness and the unity of God. You are one self, complete, healed, whole, with a power to lift the veil of darkness from the world, and let the light in you come through to teach the world the truth about yourself. You are one self, in perfect harmony with all that there is and in all that there will be. You are one self, a holy child of God, united with your brothers and your sisters in that self. Feel this self in you. Let it shine away all your illusions and all your doubts. This is your self, a child of God Himself, sinless as His Creator, with His strength within you and His love forever yours. You are one self, and it's given you to feel this self within you and to cast all your illusions out of the one mind that is this self, the holy truth in you. You are one self with me, united with our Creator in this self. I honor you because of what I am and what He is, who loves us both as one. I am one self, united with my Creator.